four were in a leased vehicle from Budget being driven by an American who only recently arrived in Australia. Police say the driver swept around the bend losing control as the car came into contact with the gravel shoulder, gliding side on with the guardrail, spinning end for end before finally coming to rest down an embankment upside down against a tree. It's believed a passenger in the rear of the vehicle was not wearing a seatbelt and was thrown forward, shattering the front windscreen. Another passenger in the rear of the car had to be lifted from the wreckage in a critical condition and revived by the roadside before being transported to hospital. The driver and another passenger escaped with only minor injuries.
The decision lies in the hands of the Hooker Corporation's provisional liquidator, who is overseeing the sale of Hooker Multiplex construction assets. It's the fourth company connected with Hooker to run into trouble since the rescue plan for Hookers was scrapped last week. Until then, Glendale, a giant development with an estimated cost of more than $250 million, was considered essential to the recovery of the troubled corporation. A spokesman for provisional liquidator John Harkness said Glendale is still being assessed, though he was interested in gauging applications from potential buyers. Lake Macquarie Mayor Ivan Welsh today reiterated his confidence in what would be Newcastle's biggest complex, including a brewery, tavern, cinema, theme park, town centre development and shopping complex with 5,000 parking spaces.
I'll be able to become more involved.
He says he knows of two interested potential buyers, but he stressed that to sell the site at land value only would mean the loss to Hookers of maybe $1 million. Ambitious plans have been in the pipeline since 1982, and Alderman Welsh is optimistic the development will go ahead. And he says an adjoining sporting and entertainment complex with an indoor arena seating 10,000 is still a possibility. Part of Hooker's plans involved an interstate bus and rail interchange, and this too could still be viable, he claims. But the chairman of Cardiff Chamber of Commerce, Richard Devon, believes the area doesn't need another major shopping complex and describes the development as a giant hype. Still no major tenant has been found, he says, but he claims the plans have halted any possible upgrading of nearby Cardiff.
The 14-member board submitted only two candidates for the revered position of chairman. Alderman Gordon Hughes from Lake Macquarie Council declined his nomination, clearing the way for Singleton Shire President Neil McNamara to claim the chairmanship unopposed. Councillor McNamara, a dairy farmer and grazier from Broke, has been involved in local government since 1956. He says he was pleasantly surprised to get the nod from his peers.
Yes, I was. I was very surprised that it should be that way, but I do hope that it augurs well for a very cooperative council working together for the benefit of cheaper electricity and a permanent supply of electricity to our customers.
Councillor McNamara's appointment is only a stopgap measure until the November board elections, when nominations for the chairmanship of the next 12 months will be called. Darren Curtis for NBN News.
The Trades Hall delegates accepted an invitation from Tomaree Action Group to hear their case against the state government's plan to publicly sell the site for commercial development. The Trade Hall delegates were told that Tomaree Lodge is acting as a staging post, gradually easing long-term residents of hospitals at Stockton and Morisset towards more independent living. It's claimed that the hospital operates at much lower costs than comparable centres. But it's not hard to imagine why a developer would find the commanding position at the entrance to the bay a lucrative prospect. Trades Hall Vice President Trevor Maudsley says commercial use isn't appropriate.
And the people, the mentally disadvantaged people who for so long have occupied this most idyllic spot, could be seriously disadvantaged by being moved on to some other location without the surroundings that they have here.
The delegates will take recommendations back to a meeting of the Trades Council where it's likely that the prospect of a green ban will be raised.
If it comes finally down to the wire of whether development takes place or not, then we could consider the question of imposing green bans. It's within the area of responsibility of the Trades Council and affiliated unions to make such a decision.
The Trades Hall has already placed a green ban on the proposed Peppers Marina at Corlett Beach, although a development application won't go before Port Stephens Shire Council for another month. The delegates took time to meet the marina developers during this morning's tour of Nelson Bay, and there were signs of a possible breakthrough in the development deadlock. That's unlikely to be the case for anyone hoping to develop Tomaree Peninsula. Hospital supporters say that if the lodge has to go, the land should become a national park. And if that doesn't deter developers, then bans will.
Any developer that wants to come in and develop with a green ban on must be surely out of his mind.
If all else fails, the Tomaree Action Group believes it may have one last ace up its sleeve in the terms of the original purchase of the headland by the Department of Public Health from the federal government in 1949. The Trades Hall has suggested that the Commonwealth Government may have set down conditions on the use of the peninsula when it was sold to the state, and it's unlikely that one of those uses would be public resale. In that case, the $25 million site may even be resumed by the Commonwealth for the original price, a princely sum of £47,000. I'm Tom Hilston for NBN News.
Now that the tax-subsidised honeymoon is over, Telecom and Australia Post are both looking at ways to stay competitive. In the business world, they'll now both have to pay taxes and stamp duties like all other corporations. Ever since the Postmaster General system ended in 1975, Australia Post has always supplied free space for Telecom to display their phone books. It's a service appreciated by the public who need to look up numbers while out shopping or travelling. But the time-honoured friendly practice is over, and Australia Post told Telecom to pay for display space like all other regular businesses. But it seems what was good enough for free is not good enough if it has to be paid for. So Telecom promptly took the reference books out of Australia Post offices. Australia Post will continue to hand over giveaway phone books to anyone who asks for them, and will be paid to do so by Telecom. Next time you're away from home and you need to look up a telephone number, you can still go to Australia Post, but instead of just giving you the number alone, under the new agency agreements, they have to give you the entire book. Australia Post says the new system is not very efficient because people are used to coming to them for telephone information. Now they have to rely on staff goodwill to look up phone numbers, and they're not paid to perform that service.
Well, we do have notices up in the post offices to advise them that the phone books are no longer available, and they ring various numbers depending on where they're trying to ring. But it's mixed, I suppose, the reaction from the people. Some people accept it and some people don't, because some people perceive the post office as the old PMG department, which was Telecom and Australia Post tied together, and they always relate the post offices with phones and phone books and that sort of thing.
Some post offices say they will leave out a few telephone books for the public. Telecom in the future is intending to place their reference phone books in public libraries.
"86 promising young swimmers from across the region took part in today's clinic at the West Wallsend heated pool. Most are rated level 2, which is just below high competitive standard. The object of the clinic, conducted by State Director of Amateur Swimming Coaching, Kirk Marks, is set to get the swimmers into the competitive ranks through correcting style faults, improving techniques like starts, finishes and tumble turns. The 86 participants aged between 6 and 20 meet every second week during winter to train with others in an effort to improve their competitive standard. State Coaching Director Kirk Marks says the clinics have a twofold purpose. Not only do they teach the swimmers new techniques, but coaches from different clubs learn as well.
Working with the kids, but the coaches see the latest technique, whether it be a starting technique or a new breaststroke technique, and they just see it in their local area and they don't have to come to Sydney and learn about it or read about it somewhere, but they get it firsthand. And I spend a lot of time travelling.
The Sevens comp, hosted by the Maitland club, today attracted more than 600 players from under-9s through to under-19s. The competition, now in its fourth year, saw teams from Sydney, Parramatta, Gosford, Central North and the State Agricultural Colleges compete for more than $2,800 in trophies and prize money. The games were played at an extremely fast pace, with the small men dominating, breaking clear and using speed to set up tries from all over the ground. While there was plenty of speed, nobody shied away from the heavy knocks. Highlight of the day was a dazzling display by Australian representatives Kyle Hunter and Jeff Cook, playing for the Maitland side. The locals displayed all the skill that is needed, and it won't be long before these two are pulling on Sydney first grade jerseys.
It was not a pretty sight for teachers and students arriving at Waratah Primary School this morning. It's the second time in 2 weeks the school has been vandalised. The vandals gained entry to 2 main buildings of the school by smashing windows. 11 were broken. Even a steel security grate on the computer room didn't deter them. It was jemmied open and a video taken. Spots of blood on the wall suggest one of the culprits was injured climbing through the jagged glass. Detectives found fingerprints on the window. In the main administration block, the scene was similar. Drawers and cupboards were ransacked and filing cabinets upturned. A heavy door fitted with a security lock was forced open, the skirting board torn from the wall. Mayfield detectives believe the vandals were searching for money, but no cash is kept on the premises. The destruction at Waratah Primary is all too familiar for those who do the repairs.
Jeff, how many schools have you seen like this?
In the last week and a half to 2 weeks, we've seen about 5 schools. Mainly this sort of damage, canteens, getting into libraries, stuff like that.
Damage has been estimated at more than $3,000, but with more than 150 break-ins into local schools so far this year, the cost soon snowballs. Already more than $280,000 has been spent on these kind of repairs. Jodie McKay for NBN News.
Meanwhile, Rutherford High School is celebrating the break of a 10-year drought for the Hunter by winning the New South Wales Combined High School's Stan Jones Tennis Trophy knockout. Rutherford's team of Rodney Way, Mark Steele, Christian Duma and Scott Francis were highly favoured to win the 2-day tournament against 9 other schools, although their finals rivals, Epping Boys High, included State Schoolboys number 1, Jamie Holmes. In the end, depth made the difference, Rutherford winning the trophy 5 sets, 35 games, to 3 sets, 28 games. The last Hunter school to win the event was Merewether High in 1978.
The prestigious award is made annually to an outstanding local company promoting a good image for the Hunter. The Knights started penniless. Before the first team ran onto the paddock last season, they were $200,000 in the red. They had also taken over a licensed club and playing field that had every chance of becoming a white elephant. Crowd attendances at home games drawing in excess of 30,000 people, special buses, trains and signposting throughout the region all contributed to the club's amazing success, both financially and in the hearts of Novocastrians.
Well, there's no question that part of our success is having the people of Newcastle behind us. The crowds that we're pulling each weekend that we play at home are at a record level in the Winfield competition, and just the public interest in the Knights is at an all-time high.
The Knights attribute most of their off-field success to a good combination of executives with 1990s ideas, a factor now lacking in many Sydney clubs. New South Wales Rugby League President John Quayle was in total agreement.
There's no doubt for a new team into the competition to see the public the sport that the Knights have got is incredible. Newcastle entry into the Winfield Cup last year was probably more smooth, more professional than any other club in the league, and I think that speaks highly of their administration, their coaching staff, and certainly the city of Newcastle.
Tonight at Carl Oval, Lakes United will have the home ground advantage when they tackle North Nelson Bay in the elimination final, and tomorrow defending Premiers South Newcastle do battle with Maitland at Townsend Oval in the qualifying final. Only 2 rounds to go in the Newcastle Rugby Union Premiership, and the battle for the minor title reaches a crisis point when the 2 leading teams, University of Merewether Carlton, meet. The Waratah Port Hunter match has been transferred to Stockton. 2 rounds to be played this weekend in Newcastle men's hockey, with the interesting matches being the clash between Uni and North tomorrow and then Souths and Norths on Sunday. The Newcastle Falcons are at home this Saturday evening to the Geelong Supercats in what promises to be a highly entertaining game of basketball. Neither side will have any influence on the positions in the top 6 of the National Basketball League, but both are capable of turning it on for the fans. Geelong have the services of former Falcon Jim Bateman and will be tough to beat, while the Falcons will be smarting over the loss last weekend to Westside Melbourne, a game they had under control but which slipped away.
They're all going to put their all into it. Their steel got the angle sweet.
Clay Hero failed to handle the going when a disappointing 4th behind Select Prince in the Rosehill Missile Stakes, but he will find conditions ideal tomorrow. Evergreen sprinter At Sea will also appreciate a firm track, and the consistent Groucho is not without a chance. In the daily double at Rosehill, Gary Harley suggests you couple Clay Hero with Generous Prince in the second leg. The certainty of a heavy track prompted Rosehill trainer Jeff Chapman to send his mudlark Potrero to Melbourne for tomorrow's Wait for Age Caulfield Churnside Stakes. Potrero has drawn the rails barrier and will take no end of beating. Throw in Boardwalk Angel and Scarlet Bliss for the other placings in the trifecta, and Mind My Boy and Surrealism for the legs of the daily double. The finals of the Silver Bullet and AWA Cups will highlight tomorrow's Beaumont Park Greyhound meeting, and if last week's run is any indication, World Park Lass will take some stopping in the final of the Silver Bullet.
World Park Lass cruised to the lead on the turn. She's got it one there from Shirley Glider. Style Leader battling on for third, but World Park Lass trained out at Gateshead by Chris.
So for the trifecta on the Bullet, World Park Lass to beat Style Leader and Chariot's Gift, and for the daily double, Mary Casey and Sports Store. Trotting is at Maitland tomorrow night, and So Lord with Golden Daydream should fill the winner's circle in the daily double, and in the trifecta race, Golden Daydream to beat Backstreet Girl and Salute the Stars. Hope you make a few bob on the weekend.
Australian beef sales have risen 16% in the last year. In New South Wales, domestic consumption was $793 million. The meat industry says that's because of a new approach to meat producing, tailoring beef cattle to suit consumer demands. Australians appear to want small, lean cuts of meat. But while Australians prefer one type of beef, the export market wants something different. In Japan, they want fattier, more marbled beef. So, to tailor beef for the different markets, producers have to begin grading their cattle to differentiate between the various meats. Ozmeat has been introducing grading for the past 3 years, with most meatworks now using the system. Producers can specify their meat in terms of fat content and provide a more exact dollar value to each individual beast. But most importantly, they can now grade cattle consistently so the entire industry can understand each other.
If you get the right specifications, then you can command the right price. For example, we sold cattle here at Tocal only recently, and we marketed them correctly, met the specifications, and we commanded something like about 37 cents above the best offer we could get selling them elsewhere.
So grading makes a difference?
Definitely.
But while grading cattle can command more dollars for export beef, it's likely to do the same for beef targeted for domestic consumption, which means you could end up paying more for your T-bone in the future.
More than 800 people at the Berkeley Vale Community High School heard Mr Garrett, local politicians and Environment Minister Tim Moore speak on the need to object to the establishment of the Ashlands chemical factory. If allowed to go ahead, the plant will produce paint products and resins allegedly harmful to the environment if not contained correctly or allowed to escape into nearby waterways in the event of an accident.
These kind of toxic chemical plants have got to be treated with the utmost caution. These materials don't decay, they're enormously potentially dangerous to livelihood. People in families have got to be incredibly concerned that they're talking about putting those kinds of plants in here. You look at the mob of folk that you've got there, decent Aussies who are concerned about what's going to happen in their own lives, in their backyards and to their kids. And I think that really conservation's centre stage, which is where it should be, because Australian environment is still remarkably intact. We desperately need to keep it that way.
Earlier today, Mr Garrett inspected the Corlett Marina site at Port Stephens and believes the character of the area will be destroyed if the development is approved.
The environment there is absolutely precious and fantastic. It's an environment for all working people, not just for the rich that can afford the nifty hotel rooms.
He also stressed that other projects should not be allowed to be passed without objection.
I think the general public have to let council know how they feel, but more importantly they've got to let Greiner government know how they feel. We've got a government here, Greiner Inc., which is not looking seriously enough at environment issues. The whole of New South Wales coast is threatened. A way of life that Aussies have taken for granted for some time is now deeply, deeply, deeply jeopardised by developments like this, so people have got to let governments know.
Last Friday, 27,612 fans turned up to watch the Knights try and halt Wally Lewis's Broncos charge towards the finals, and Grant Ricks wished he had stayed north of the border. From the kick-off, Ricks knocked on and halfback Steve Walters did the rest.
The scrum's won by the Knights.
Walters has scored! Unbelievable in the first 60 seconds! Try one after 60 seconds and the Knights' second came 4 minutes later. An action replay of the first with fullback Gary Worth scoring under the posts.
This time he unloads the ball. Worth takes on the defence. He beat Lewis and scored. That was another miss. Wally Lewis tackle.
10-0 and the Knights were flying, but Wally Lewis signalled a return to some discipline from the Broncos. Paul Harrigan on the end of the message. And it wasn't much longer before Lewis put Jackson in. As if the Broncos haven't suffered enough injuries this year, in-form hooker Kerrod Walters left the field with a broken arm. But it was Jackson again who set up Tony Curry, who levelled the scores at 10-all.
The kick sets up magnificently for Curry. That's a terrific try from Brisbane.
But the Blue and Reds were showing plenty of fight, and just before half-time they were in again.
Looking out wide for Doyle into the gap. Hagan on the run around. It should be a try. Hagan will score in the corner. Terrific try from Newcastle.
Running with a strong breeze at their back and a 6-point lead, things looked pretty rosy for the Knights, but things started to break down. French put up a huge bomb and it was replacement Terry Madison who scored the easiest try of his career.
The field of play. Who wants it? Who's got it? A Broncos try. They just held back Newcastle.
16-all, and the Broncos needed another try to stay in the hunt for the semis. It came from that genius King Wally to send Brett Plowman over wide out.
One of the first times he's really cut loose in a run. Plowman to the corner. Plowman will score. Just brushed the tackles away.
But what a game of football, with both teams giving their all, and it was a weary but relieved Wally Lewis who limped from the ISC to fight another day.